Don't you dare touch that tray!
The cafeteria manager snatched the tray from the girl's hands. She wiped her gloves as if she'd just touched something filthy.
You black people sneaking into the wrong places like hungry black rats every day.
She moved closer.
Section B. That's where people like you eat. Not here!
The girl held up her student ID.
Ma'am, I've already paid my tuition.
With what?
The woman's lips curled into a scornful smile.
People like you can't make money. Now get out of my line before you contaminate every plate of food here!
The girl said nothing. Behind her, a man stopped mid-sentence, his jaw clenched. It was his daughter. Who was he? And what she had just done was about to turn her life upside down. Let me tell you about the man in the doorway. Darius Coleman grew up in East Baltimore, not the Baltimore you see in travel brochures. The Baltimore where gunshots replaced fireworks on the 4th of July, where the hallway of his apartment building smelled like mildew and cigarette smoke every single day of his childhood. His father mopped floors at Johns Hopkins Hospital for 31 years. His mother taught 3rd grade at a public school with no air conditioning. They never made more than $42,000 combined. But every night, his mother would sit at the kitchen table with Darius and his older brother, Elijah, and make them read out loud until the streetlights came on. Elijah was the smart one. Everyone said so. He wanted to be a doctor. He had the grades. He had the mind. He didn't have the time. Elijah was diagnosed with leukemia at 11. He died at 12. Darius was 9 years old. He remembers standing in the hospital hallway, staring at the same floor his father mopped every morning, and thinking, why didn't anyone catch it sooner? That question never left him. At 18, Darius enlisted in the Marine Corps. Not because he wanted to fight, because he wanted to pay for college without burying his parents in debt. 4 years of service, 2 tours overseas, a scar on his left shoulder from shrapnel he never talks about. Then, MIT on the GI Bill. Biochemistry, top of his class. Then a garage lab in Stamford, Connecticut, a folding table, a used centrifuge, and one obsession: pediatric cancer therapeutics. The kind of medicine that could have saved Elijah. That garage became Coleman BioVentures. Today, it sits on the NASDAQ exchange, $4.2 billion market cap, 312 employees, 14 drugs in clinical trials, 6 already saving children's lives in 22 countries. Darius Coleman built all of it with his hands, his mind, and a dead brother's name carved into his heart. 2 years ago, his wife Renee collapsed in their Brooklyn kitchen. Brain aneurysm. She was 39. By the time the ambulance arrived, she was gone. After the funeral, Darius couldn't cook in that kitchen anymore. He couldn't look at the chair where she used to sit and grade her students' papers. Renee had been an English professor. He couldn't sleep in their bed, so he moved, sold the brownstone, took Amara to Connecticut. Amara, his 18-year-old daughter, the girl who just stood in that lunch line and said nothing while a grown woman called her a rat. Amara had been accepted into Whitmore University on pure merit. SAT score in the top 2%. A research paper on gene therapy published before she graduated high school. She earned her place, every inch of it. But she also carried a secret she never told anyone on campus. Her father was one of the university's largest donors. His foundation had been in talks with the board of trustees for months about a $12.5 million endowment, a new biochemistry research center named after her mother. Amara didn't want anyone to know. She wanted to prove she belonged on her own. No last name, no foundation, no billion-dollar safety net. So she kept quiet. Even when Patricia Sullivan started targeting her in the cafeteria during the first week of classes. Even when it happened again the second week, and the third, and every week after that. She never told her father, because she didn't want him to think she was weak. Because she thought if she reported it, people would say the billionaire's daughter was being dramatic. So she swallowed it, week after week, alone. Now, this particular Tuesday morning, Darius had flown in from New York at 6 a.m. His helicopter landed at Whitmore's private airfield at 7:15. By 8, he was sitting in the mahogany-paneled boardroom on the third floor of the administration building, shaking hands with the board of trustees. The morning session went well. Numbers were approved. Architectural renderings were praised. The endowment was nearly finalized. Everyone smiled. Everyone shook hands again. At noon, the board broke for lunch. The trustees headed for the faculty dining room. White tablecloths, sparkling water, salmon fillets. Darius declined. He told the board chair he needed some air. But the truth was simpler than that. He hadn't seen his daughter in 3 weeks. He missed her. He wanted to surprise her. Sit across from her in the cafeteria like a normal dad. Eat whatever she was eating. Ask about her classes. He didn't call ahead. He didn't text. He just walked down 2 flights of stairs, followed the signs to the university dining hall, pushed open the glass door, and heard a woman call his daughter a black rat. Darius didn't move for 3 full seconds. 3 seconds is nothing in normal life, but in a moment like this, 3 seconds is long enough to feel every muscle in your body tighten, long enough to hear your own heartbeat in your ears, long enough to decide what kind of man you're going to be in the next 5 minutes. He watched Patricia Sullivan lean across the counter. Her latex gloves were still on. Her face was twisted into the kind of sneer that doesn't come from a bad day. It comes from decades of believing certain people are less than you. And standing on the other side of that counter, holding an empty tray with both hands, was Amara. His Amara, the girl who used to fall asleep on his chest during thunderstorms. The girl who read her first research paper out loud to him at the kitchen table when she was 16, so nervous her voice cracked on every third word. The girl who held his hand at her mother's funeral and whispered, "I got you, Daddy." That girl was standing in a lunch line, being told she didn't belong. Darius looked around the cafeteria. He needed to see the full picture before he moved. To the left, a line of about 40 students stretched along the serving counter. Most of them were staring. A few had their phones out already. One boy near the front, tall, black, wearing a Whitmore track hoodie, had taken a half step toward Amara like he wanted to help. That was Tyler Brooks, Amara's friend. But Amara had shaken her head at him, a tiny motion. Don't. Behind the counter, 2 kitchen staff members, both Latino, stood frozen at their stations. They weren't looking at Patricia. They were looking at the floor. The body language of people who had seen this before and learned a long time ago that speaking up only made things worse. To the right, 3 tables of students had gone completely silent, forks down, conversations dead. A white girl with glasses, Amara's roommate Sophie, had her hand over her mouth, and at the center of all of it, Patricia Sullivan stood with her arms crossed, one hip cocked against the counter, looking at Amara the way someone looks at a stain on their shirt. Darius crossed the cafeteria. His shoes made no sound on the linoleum. Marine Corps training doesn't leave your body. You learn to move quietly. You learn to control your breath. You learn that the most dangerous man in the room is never the loudest one. He stopped 3 feet from the counter, placed his hand on Amara's shoulder. Gently. The way you touch someone to let them know they're not alone anymore. Amara flinched, then turned. Her eyes went wide. "Dad? What are you doing here?" Her voice cracked. Just barely. The same crack from the kitchen table 2 years ago. But this time it wasn't nerves about a research paper. It was shame. The kind of shame that comes from being caught in a moment you've been hiding from the one person you love most. Darius looked at her. He didn't answer the question. Not yet. Instead, he turned to Patricia Sullivan. "Excuse me, I'm her father. I'd like to understand what's happening here." His voice was level. No heat, no volume. Just the calm, measured tone of a man who has chaired boardrooms with senators and generals on the other side of the table. Patricia looked at him. And here's the thing. This is the moment that mattered. This is where everything could have gone differently. If Patricia Sullivan had looked at this man and seen a human being, if she had said, "I'm sorry, there's been a misunderstanding," if she had handed the tray back and checked the system, but she didn't. She looked at Darius Coleman the same way she looked at his daughter, the same way she looked at every black person who crossed her line. She saw the blazer with no tie. She saw no entourage, no Rolex flashing on his wrist, no power signals she was trained to recognize. She saw a black man. That was enough. "Sir," she tilted her chin up, "parents and visitors are not permitted in the serving area. If you have questions about your daughter's financial situation, the financial aid office is in the administration building, 2nd floor. They open at 9. Financial aid. Darius let that land. He didn't flinch, didn't blink. "I'm not here about finances. I'm here about the way you just spoke to my child." Patricia uncrossed her arms, placed both hands flat on the counter, leaned forward. The overhead fluorescent lights buzzed above her like trapped insects. "Sir, I don't appreciate the tone." Her voice got louder, deliberately louder. She was performing now, not for Darius, but for the kitchen staff behind her, for the students watching, for anyone who might question her authority later. "We have standards here. We have systems. Maybe at the schools you're used to, people can just walk in and demand whatever they want. But this is Whitmore University." She paused. Let the name of the school sit in the air like it meant something sacred. "And I have been here for 19 years. So I suggest you lower your voice, collect your daughter, and leave through the side exit. Quietly." Darius didn't lower anything. He didn't raise anything either. He stood exactly where he was. "I'd like your name and title, please." "Excuse me?" "Your name and your title. I'm making a formal inquiry." Patricia's left eye twitched, just once, the first crack in the mask. "I don't have to give you anything." "Then I'd like to speak with your supervisor." Patricia laughed, a short, dry sound, like a branch snapping. "Honey, I am the supervisor. I run this entire dining operation, have for 19 years. And in 19 years, I have never had someone walk into my cafeteria and speak to me like this." She leaned even closer, close enough that Darius could smell the coffee on her breath. "Now, I'm going to ask you one more time. Leave, or I will have you removed." Darius didn't move. "I'd like my daughter to receive the hot meal that my family has paid for. Full tuition, full meal plan, no financial aid, no scholarship, paid in full. And I'd like it served to her at this counter. The same counter where you serve every other student. Patricia stared at him. Her nostrils flared. Her jaw tightened. The cafeteria was so quiet you could hear the ice machine humming 3 rooms away. Then she reached under the counter and pressed a button. A radio crackled to life. Static popped, and Patricia Sullivan spoke into it with the exaggerated calm of someone who has already decided to make you the villain. "Security, this is Sullivan in the dining hall. I have an unidentified male in the serving area. He is confrontational and refuses to leave. I need assistance immediately." She set the radio down, looked at Darius, and smiled. "Let's see how this goes for you." 30 seconds later, the side door swung open. Officer Brenda Hayes walked in. Mid-40s, campus security uniform, radio on her hip. She scanned the room fast. Amara standing rigid, Darius with his hands visible at his sides, Patricia behind the counter with her arms crossed again. Hayes had been campus security for 11 years. She'd responded to noise complaints, dorm lockouts, parking disputes. She had never once drawn her taser. She was good at reading rooms, and right now, this room didn't read right. But Patricia was already moving toward her, whispering, fast, loud enough for Darius to catch pieces. "Not a registered parent. Walked right in. Aggressive behavior. I feel threatened. Might not even be her father." Hayes looked at Darius. "Sir, can I see some identification, please?" Darius reached into his blazer pocket, slowly, deliberately, the way black men in America learned to move around anyone in uniform, and pulled out his driver's license, handed it over without a word. Hayes checked it, radioed it in. The response came back clean. No warrants, no record, not even a parking ticket. "He's clean," Hayes said, half to herself. Patricia was already shaking her head. "That doesn't mean anything. Anyone can carry an ID. Look at him. Does he look like he belongs here?" Hayes paused. Something shifted in her expression, a tiny frown, the beginning of doubt. Not about Darius, but about the woman standing next to her. But Patricia pressed harder. She always pressed harder. "I saw him reach across the counter earlier. He could have pocketed something. I want his bag checked." She pointed at the leather briefcase on Darius's shoulder. "Open it." Hayes turned to Darius. She looked uncomfortable. Her hand rested on her radio, not her taser. That was a good sign. But her mouth said what Patricia wanted it to say. "Sir, would you mind if I took a look in your bag?" The cafeteria held its breath. Darius looked at Officer Hayes, then at Patricia, then at the dozens of phones already recording from every angle of the room. "No," he said. "I do not consent to a search. There is no probable cause, no warrant. This is my personal property." Calm, clear, each word placed like a brick. Hayes nodded. Legally, she could not push it. She knew that. Darius knew that. But Patricia Sullivan did not care about the law. Patricia cared about winning. In 19 years at Whitmore, she had never lost a confrontation with someone who looked like Darius Coleman. She moved fast, came around the full end of the counter, and grabbed the leather briefcase right off Darius' shoulder, hard enough that the strap burned a line across his collarbone. Amara shouted, "Do not touch him!" Hayes stepped forward. "Patricia, wait!" Too late. Patricia had the briefcase on the counter. She unzipped it with both hands. The sound ripped through the cafeteria like a scream. She started pulling things out, slamming each item onto the stainless steel surface for the whole room to see. A laptop, silver. She barely glanced at it. A leather portfolio, dark brown. Embossed on the front in gold letters, Coleman Bioventures. Patricia did not read it, did not care. A Marine Corps challenge coin. Heavy. Bronze. Patricia turned it over like a bottle cap and tossed it back onto the counter. Metal rang against steel. Amara flinched. Tyler flinched. Sophie covered her mouth. A bound document. 53 pages. The title read, Endowment Agreement. Renee Coleman Biochemistry Research Center, Whitmore University. $12,500,000. Patricia flipped through 3 pages, did not read a word, tossed it back like junk mail. "Nothing here," she announced, loud, theatrical. "But that does not mean I trust him." Then she wiped her hands on her apron, the same gesture from before, as if contact with anything belonging to a black person required decontamination. Darius looked at his challenge coin lying on the counter. The coin he had carried in his pocket the day Elijah died, the day Amara was born, the day he buried Renee. Now lying next to a ketchup dispenser and a stack of paper napkins. He picked it up, put it in his blazer pocket. The only thing trembling was his hand. He said nothing. Tyler Brooks was still filming, hands shaking, camera steady. 11 minutes of unbroken footage. 2 other students filmed from different angles. The cafeteria had become a courtroom. Every single phone was a piece of evidence. Patricia did not notice the phones. She was already moving to the next phase. She walked back behind the counter, positioned herself directly between Darius and Amara, arms spread wide, palms flat on the steel. A human wall between a father and his daughter. "I want everyone in this cafeteria to know," she projected, her voice reaching every corner of the room, "that I am acting in the interest of student safety. I do not feel safe with this man in our facility. I asked him to leave. He refused. I called security. He refused to cooperate." Then she turned to Amara, locked eyes with her. Her voice did not get quieter. It got sharper, the way a blade gets sharper when you press it at an angle. "And you," she pointed a gloved finger at Amara's chest. "Sit down. The adults are handling this now. You should be grateful this university even lets you sit in this room at all. Do you hear me? Grateful. Not every school would be this generous with people like you." Grateful. The word hung in the cafeteria like smoke after a gunshot, as if Amara's seat was a gift that could be revoked at any time, as if her presence was charity, as if her perfect grades, her published research, her 1580 SAT score, and her family paying full tuition were all completely meaningless because her skin was the wrong color for the main serving line. Amara did not sit down, did not cry. She stood perfectly still. But something behind her eyes broke. The quiet kind. The kind where a person stops believing the world will ever be fair, no matter how hard they try, no matter how well they behave. Sophie rushed over and grabbed Amara by the arm. "This is insane," she whispered. "This is absolutely insane." An older man, sitting at a corner table, gray hair, tweed jacket, had been watching the entire scene in silence. Dr. Henry Caldwell, tenured professor of constitutional law. He had watched every moment without saying a single word. But when Patricia said grateful, he stood up, picked up his coffee, walked out through the faculty entrance. In the hallway, he pulled out his phone and made one call. That call mattered. But not yet. Patricia grabbed the radio again, called for a second officer. Now, 2 uniforms stood near the entrance, Officer Hayes and a younger man named Officer Grayson, both looking increasingly uneasy. Patricia marched over to them. She spoke fast, ticking accusations off her fingers like a checklist she had memorized long ago. I want a formal incident report filed, right now. This man entered a restricted area without authorization. He was confrontational. He refused a search. He created a hostile environment. I want his name flagged in the campus security system. I want him banned from this campus. Permanently. She pointed at Darius without turning around. Escort him off the property. Now. Officer Hayes shifted her weight. She looked at Darius, standing still, hands visible at his sides, eyes steady. Then at Patricia, pacing back and forth, gesturing wildly, voice climbing higher with every sentence. Hayes had been campus security for 11 years. She knew what a real threat looked like, and she knew what a performance looked like. This was a performance. But Patricia had 19 years of power behind her. She sat on the staff safety committee. She had the ear of every administrator in the building. Crossing her had consequences. Hayes knew that better than anyone. Hayes took a breath. Mr. Coleman, I think it is best if you step into the hallway with me while we sort this out. Darius nodded once. He turned to Amara. Every phone in the room was still pointed at him. His voice softened, just fatherly. Sweetheart, I am right here. You did nothing wrong, not one thing. Eat your lunch. I will be back in 10 minutes. Amara's lip trembled. She nodded. Darius reached for his phone. 2 messages, fast, precise. First, to Catherine Brooks, Chief Legal Counsel. Freeze every contract linked to Whitmore University across our entire portfolio, including the Foundation Endowment. Effective immediately. Second, to Dean Edward Whitmore. Come to the dining hall, now. He slid the phone into his pocket, walked toward the hallway with Officer Hayes. His footsteps echoed on the linoleum. Behind him, the cafeteria erupted in whispers. Patricia Sullivan did not hear the whispers. She was too busy smiling. She straightened her apron, turned to the nearest kitchen worker, a young black woman who had been staring at the floor the whole time, and said loud enough for every table to hear, "See, that is how you handle them. 19 years, never failed." In the hallway, Hayes walked beside Darius in silence for about 15 steps. Then she stopped, lowered her voice. "Mr. Coleman, between you and me, that was wrong. Everything that happened in there was wrong. I knew it the second I walked in." Darius looked at her. How often does she do this? Hayes stared at the floor tiles. A long pause. Then, "You are not the first person to ask me that." Footsteps behind them. Amara had followed. Tyler Brooks was right beside her, phone still recording. Amara's voice was small, the kind of small that has nothing to do with volume and everything to do with how much a person has been carrying alone. "Dad, I did not tell you because I did not want you to think I could not handle it. But she does this every week, not just to me, to Tyler, to every black student who uses the main line. She sends us to Section B every single time." Tyler nodded. "She calls it sorting, says it is policy. There is no policy, sir." Darius looked at his daughter. His eyes went red for the first time all day. Not from anger, from the specific pain a father feels when he discovers his child has been suffering in silence to protect him from worrying. He did not speak. He placed his hand on her shoulder. The same gesture from the cafeteria, but heavier now, weighted with everything he wished he had known weeks ago. At the end of the hallway, the elevator chimed. Steel doors slid open. Dean Edward Whitmore stepped out. Same navy suit from the morning meeting, face the color of old paper, hands shaking from the text he had read on the ride down. He looked at Darius, the man he had called our most important strategic partner just 3 hours ago, and understood that the ground beneath his career had cracked wide open. "Oh my God," he whispered. "What happened?" Whitmore was already sweating through his dress shirt. He looked at Darius, then at Amara, then at Tyler, who was still holding up his phone like a shield. "Someone tell me what happened," Whitmore said. "Right now." Hayes spoke first. She kept it short. She kept it factual. A cafeteria supervisor had denied a student her meal. The student's father had intervened. The supervisor had called security, accused the father of trespassing, and physically seized his personal belongings in front of the entire dining hall. The father had cooperated fully. The supervisor had not. Whitmore listened. His face got paler with every sentence. Then he turned to Darius, and for the first time since walking out of that elevator, he actually looked at him. Not at the blazer, not at the visitor badge clipped to his pocket, at the man. "Mr. Coleman," Whitmore said slowly, choosing every word like a man walking through a minefield. "I want you to know that whatever happened in that cafeteria does not represent this university." Darius just looked at him. "You were in a boardroom with me 3 hours ago," Darius said. "You shook my hand. You called me your most important strategic partner. You showed me architectural drawings of a building that would carry my dead wife's name." He paused. "And while you were pouring me coffee upstairs, your employee was downstairs telling my daughter she should be grateful you let her sit in your cafeteria." Whitmore opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Amara spoke, quiet but clear. "Dean Whitmore, this was not the first time. She does this every week. She has a system. She calls it sorting. Black students go to Section B. White students stay on the main line. There is no policy that says this. She made it up, and nobody stopped her." Whitmore looked like a man watching his house burn down from the inside. "I did not know," he whispered. "That is the problem," Darius said. "You did not know, or you did not look." He let that sit for 3 full seconds. Then he spoke again. "Here is what is going to happen. You and I are going to walk back into that cafeteria together. You are going to address what happened in front of the same students who watched it happen. And your employee is going to be removed from this campus today. Not next week, not after a review. Today." Whitmore started to protest. "Mr. Coleman, perhaps we should handle this privately. I can schedule a meeting with Human Resources and the legal team, and we can—" "She handled it publicly," Darius said. "She humiliated my daughter publicly. She called security on me publicly. She searched my belongings publicly, in front of 300 students with phones. So no, we are not handling this in a conference room." Whitmore closed his mouth. They walked back. All of them. Darius first, Whitmore half a step behind, Amara and Tyler and Hayes following. The cafeteria was still full. Nobody had left. Every student was either looking at their phone or looking at the door. The room smelled like cold food and nervous energy. Trays sat untouched. Conversations had stopped. Patricia Sullivan was behind the counter. She was wiping down a station, humming. She looked relaxed. She looked like a woman who believed the problem had been solved and the natural order had been restored. Then the door opened. Whitmore walked in first. The cafeteria went dead silent. 300 students stopped breathing at the same time. Patricia looked up. She saw the dean. She straightened. She started to smile. Then she saw Darius, right behind him, walking back into the room she had thrown him out of. The smile did not just disappear. It collapsed, layer by layer, like a building falling in slow motion. Whitmore spoke. His voice shook, but it carried to every corner of that room. "Mrs. Sullivan, this is Mr. Darius Coleman. He is a member of our Board of Advisory Trustees. He is the father of Amara Coleman, a student at this university who pays full tuition. He is the founder and CEO of Coleman Bioventures, a $4.2 billion company. His foundation is in the process of funding a $12.5 million endowment for this university. And his company is the leading candidate for the food service contract that currently pays your salary." He paused. Let every word settle into the silence, like stones dropping into still water. "You will apologize to Mr. Coleman and to his daughter immediately. And then you will accompany me to my office, where you will be suspended pending a formal investigation, effective right now." Every phone in the cafeteria was up. Every camera was recording. The red lights blinked like dozens of tiny witnesses. Patricia grabbed the edge of the counter. Her knuckles went white. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. No sound came out. Darius stepped forward. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "You know what the saddest part is?" he said. "If you had just been kind to my daughter, not because of who I am, just because she is a human being standing in your line, you would still have your job tomorrow. You would still have your contract. You would still have everything. But you chose different." The cafeteria was so quiet you could hear the ventilation fan spinning on the ceiling 3 floors up. Patricia Sullivan's legs buckled slightly. She held the counter to keep herself standing, and for the first time in 19 years, she had absolutely nothing to say. Patricia finally found her voice. It came out cracked and tangled, like something dragged out of a drain. "Mr. Coleman, I had no idea who you were. If I had known, I never would have. This is all just a misunderstanding. I was following procedure and I—" Darius cut her off. Not with volume, with precision. "That is the entire problem. You should not have to know who I am to treat my daughter like a human being. You should not have to Google someone before you decide whether they deserve a hot meal." A teacher sitting 3 tables away covered her mouth. 2 students in the back started clapping, then stopped, unsure if it was appropriate. Patricia tried again. Tears now. Real or performed, impossible to tell. 19 years of practice had blurred the line. "I was just doing my job. I've been here 19 years. Ask anyone. I care about these students. I care about all of them." Amara stepped forward. She did not shout. She did not cry. She spoke the way a person speaks when they have been holding something inside for months and have finally decided to set it down. "There is no policy that separates students by line, Mrs. Sullivan. I checked. I went to the Student Affairs office in my 2nd week and asked for the dining handbook. There is no Section A. There is no Section B. You made it up. and you used it to humiliate every black student who walked through that door. The cafeteria erupted, not in applause, in sound. Gasps, whispers. A few students said yes out loud. One girl at a corner table was crying. Tyler Brooks held his phone higher, making sure every word was captured. Patricia looked around the room for an ally. She looked at the kitchen staff. They did not meet her eyes. She looked at Officer Hayes. Hayes looked away. She looked at Whitmore. Whitmore was already reading from a piece of paper he had pulled from his jacket. "Mrs. Sullivan," Whitmore said, his voice steadier now, as if reading something official gave him a spine he did not normally have. "You are hereby suspended from your position as Director of Dining Services, effective immediately, with pay, pending a full investigation into your conduct. You are to leave this campus within the hour. Officer Hayes will escort you." Patricia's mouth moved, but no words came out. She untied her apron with shaking hands, folded it, and placed it on the counter, the way a person folds a flag at a funeral. Then she walked toward the side exit. She passed the kitchen staff on her way out. 5 workers, 3 of them black, 2 Latino. They had worked under her for years. They had watched her sort students. They had heard her comments. They had said nothing because she controlled their schedules, their shifts, their evaluations. Not one of them looked at her as she passed. As Hayes walked Patricia through the side door, one student, a white boy in a baseball cap, said it loud enough for the whole room to hear, "19 years too long." The door closed behind her. Then something shifted in the room. The tension did not disappear. It changed shape. It went from anger to something softer, something that needed repair. Darius walked behind the serving counter. Nobody stopped him. He picked up a clean tray, moved down the line, placing items on it himself. Grilled chicken, rice, steamed vegetables, a carton of chocolate milk. He carried the tray to where Amara was standing and set it down in front of her. "Eat your lunch, sweetheart," he said. "You earned your seat here every single day." Amara looked at the tray, then at her father. Then she sat down, and she ate. Darius turned to face the cafeteria. 300 students, dozens of phones, total silence. "If anyone in this room has ever been made to feel the way my daughter was made to feel today, I want you to hear me. It was never your fault. It was never about you. And it will not happen here again. I am going to make sure of that." Nobody moved for a long moment. Then one person clapped. Then 5. Then 20. Then the whole cafeteria was on its feet. The applause was not polished. It was rough and uneven and full of something that had been held back for a very long time. Amara looked up at her father through the noise, and for the first time that day, she smiled. That afternoon, Catherine Brooks landed on campus like a storm in a tailored suit. Darius had called her from the hallway at 12:45. By 2 o'clock, she was standing in the dean's office with a forensic data team, a subpoena, and the kind of calm expression that made lawyers on the other side of the table start sweating before she even opened her mouth. Catherine did not ask for permission. She presented the subpoena, and her team went to work. They pulled the cafeteria surveillance footage, 4 cameras, audio-enabled, 120 days of archived recordings. They pulled Patricia Sullivan's full personnel file. They pulled every formal complaint filed by a student or parent of color in the past 8 years. And they pulled the meal plan database, every transaction, every modification, every override, going back 3 full years. What they found made even Darius go quiet. In 8 years, 14 Black and Latino students and parents had filed formal complaints about Patricia Sullivan. 11 of those complaints had been buried by the previous administration. Filed, stamped, forgotten. 3 families had never even received a response. 5 students had transferred out of Whitmore entirely, citing hostile dining conditions in their exit interviews. Nobody had followed up. Nobody had asked why. But the meal plan data was worse. Patricia had been manually overriding the system. 23 Black and Latino students had their meal plans downgraded over the past 3 years. Full tuition, full meal plan, but flagged in the system as scholarship or financial aid recipients. Not a single white student had been reclassified. Not one. The pattern was so clean, it looked like official policy. But there was no policy. There never had been. Patricia Sullivan had built an entire system of segregation inside a college cafeteria. And she had done it one keystroke at a time. Amara's card had been flagged on her 3rd day at Whitmore. That evening, Tyler Brooks uploaded his 11-minute video to social media. He did not add a caption. He did not need to. The footage spoke for itself. Within 12 hours, the video had 6 million views. Within 48 hours, 22 million. The hashtag #WhitmoreShame was trending in every state in the country. Marissa Taylor saw the video on a Wednesday night. She was sitting in her living room in Hartford, scrolling through her phone, when she saw a woman in a cafeteria uniform pointing a gloved finger at a Black girl. And she felt her stomach drop. Because she had seen that finger before. 2 years earlier, Marissa's son Isaiah had been a sophomore at Whitmore. Patricia Sullivan had accused him of stealing a meal card. He had not stolen anything. The card was his. But Patricia had called security, had him escorted out of the dining hall, and filed a report that went into his permanent student record. Isaiah stopped eating in the cafeteria after that. He lost 15 pounds in 2 months. He transferred at the end of the semester. He never told anyone the full story until his mother saw that video and asked. Marissa called Catherine Brooks the next morning. Within a week, 6 more families came forward. Within 2 weeks, 12. The Renee Coleman Foundation funded every single family's legal representation. Darius made one statement to the press. Just one. This is not about my daughter. This is about every student who was ever made to feel small in a room where they belonged. The story caught fire. Jonathan Davis, an investigative reporter at the Hartford Tribune, published a 3-part series titled The Sorting Line. It documented 19 years of complaints, cover-ups, and institutional silence. National outlets picked it up within hours. Cable news ran the cafeteria footage on a loop. Editorial boards from New York to Los Angeles called for reform. Whitmore University's enrollment applications for the following year dropped 22% in 2 weeks. Donors pulled pledges. Alumni wrote open letters. The student government passed a unanimous vote of no confidence in the administration. Dean Edward Whitmore resigned within a month. He did not give a press conference. He sent a 1-paragraph email to the faculty listserv at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night and was gone by Monday morning. The Board of Trustees appointed an interim leader, Dr. Yvonne Wilson, a Black educator with 30 years of experience in higher education equity, took over the following week. Her first act was commissioning a full external audit of every department on campus. Her second act was walking through the dining hall at lunch, shaking hands with students, and eating a tray of grilled chicken at a table near the window. The Connecticut Attorney General opened a formal civil rights investigation. Patricia Sullivan was charged with assault for physically seizing Darius Coleman's briefcase. She was charged with unlawful restraint for blocking Amara's access to the meal line. And the charges carried a hate crime enhancement based on the documented 8-year pattern of racially targeted conduct found in the surveillance archives and the meal plan database. The civil suit, filed on behalf of 12 families, was settled for $15.8 million from the university's insurance carrier. A separate judgment of $920,000 was entered against Patricia Sullivan personally. On the day of the trial, Judge Eleanor Anderson presided. Patricia took the stand. She said she did not see color. She said she only saw behavior. She said she had been misunderstood. The prosecution played 19 audio clips from the cafeteria recordings. 8 years of Patricia Sullivan's voice, caught on camera, saying the same things to different faces. The same sorting. The same sneers. The same gloved finger pointing at the same kind of student. The jury watched Tyler Brooks's video in full. 11 minutes. Nobody in the courtroom moved. The verdict came back in under 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. The sentence? 36 months in state custody, suspended to 24 months of supervised probation given her age. Mandatory completion of a civil rights education program. A permanent ban from working in any position involving students or minors. Full restitution to all affected families. Judge Anderson spoke directly to Patricia before closing the case. What you did was not enforcement of any policy. It was cruelty, systematic, deliberate, and protected by the silence of an institution that chose comfort over justice. That silence ends today. In the gallery, Marissa Taylor sat with her son Isaiah beside her. She did not clap when the verdict was read. She just held her son's hand and said, quietly, 19 years too late. 6 months later, the cafeteria looked like a different place. New posters lined the walls. Student artwork. Photographs from every culture represented on campus. A banner near the entrance read, "Every seat belongs to everyone." The kitchen had a completely new team. A new director of dining services named Sophia Moreno had been hired from outside the university. She learned every student worker's name in her first week. She started a tradition called Family Friday, where parents were invited to eat lunch alongside their kids once a month. Whitmore University had a new Office of Equity and Inclusion, staffed by 3 full-time professionals. Mandatory bias training was now required for every employee on campus. Dr. Yvonne Wilson, confirmed as permanent vice president of student affairs, had personally rewritten the staff conduct handbook from cover to cover. Amara co-founded a student program called Open Table. It paired incoming freshmen, especially students of color and first-generation students, with upperclassmen mentors who helped them navigate everything from dining hall logistics to how to file a complaint when something went wrong. The program had 62 mentors by the end of its first semester. The Renee Coleman Foundation finalized its endowment on new terms. $18 million. 50 full tuition scholarships for students of color from the Hartford and Bridgeport public school systems. Permanent. Renewable. Named the Renee Coleman Belonging Scholarship. Isaiah Taylor, Marissa's son, reapplied to Whitmore and was accepted. On his first day back on campus, Amara met him at the front door of the dining hall with a buddy badge and a tray already waiting at a table by the window. Tyler Brooks became president of the Black Student Union. His 11-minute video had been viewed over 40 million times. He never took it down. On a Friday afternoon in October, Darius Coleman stood at the back of the cafeteria. Same room, same linoleum floor. same fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. But everything else was different. The noise was different. The energy was different. The faces behind the counter were different. Amara sat at the table in the middle of the room, surrounded by friends, all colors, all backgrounds, arguing about a biochemistry assignment and laughing so hard that one of them knocked over a carton of orange juice. Amara grabbed a napkin and cleaned it up without missing a beat. Sofia Moreno walked over to Darius. "Mr. Coleman, would you like to join the line for Family Friday? We have grilled chicken today." Darius smiled. He picked up a tray, stood in line like every other parent, served himself. He could have done 100 things differently, written the check and walked away, pulled Amara out and sent her somewhere else, let the lawyers handle everything from a distance. Instead, he kept showing up, week after week, Friday after Friday, because showing up is what changes a place. Not money, not power, not headlines. Presence. Dignity is not something a student should have to earn by having the right parents or the right bank account. The Patricias of this world do not survive because they are powerful. They survive because everyone around them stays silent. The teachers who look away. The security officers who follow orders without asking questions. The administrators who bury complaints because fixing them is inconvenient. When just one person refuses to stay quiet, the whole system falls apart. You do not need a $4 billion company to stop a Patricia. You need a phone, a witness, and the willingness to say that is not okay, loud and clear, in the room where it happened. So here is my question for you. If you walked into that cafeteria as a stranger and you heard what Darius heard, what would you do? Would you speak up? Step forward? Pull out your phone? Or would you tell yourself it was not your business? Drop your honest answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story hit you somewhere real, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Because the next Patricia is already out there. The only question is, who is going to be standing in the doorway? Yo, like, she only cared when she found out he was rich? Nah, that's the whole problem right there. You shouldn't have to Google someone before deciding if they deserve basic respect. Kindness isn't some luxury reward for people with money, status, or followers. Just be kind. It's literally free, and it costs you nothing. Yo, like, she only cared when she found out he was rich? Nah, that's the whole problem right there. You shouldn't have to Google someone before deciding if they deserve basic respect. Kindness isn't some luxury reward for people with money, status, or followers. Just be kind. It's literally free, and it costs you nothing.